Welcome back to Rudy's 1/6 World for episode 23 of our new figure showcase, where I'll be doing a quick review / posing session with the newest edition of my collection. And today we're looking at another release from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is The Vision from the MCU's inaugural Disney Plus show Wandavision. Now this is the second release from the show, with the updated Vision having been released earlier this year, and Wanda herself is still pending, so hopefully she gets released soon. Now, I chose to pass on the other Vision, specifically because I already own the original release from Age of Ultron, and as I've mentioned before in the past, while I don't mind picking up multiple versions of the same character, they have to be different enough to warrant the purchase, and for me there just weren't enough differences. Now, this version, which they're just calling the Vision or White Vision, was a completely different color scheme, and more importantly, in the show, it was the real version of the character, resuscitated by Sword, in what I thought was one of the more interesting moments, particularly given the horrific way that Vision's body was found by Wanda earlier in the show, leading to her breakdown. So before jumping in to take a look at the figure, let's talk a little Marvel and focus this time on Disney Plus shows. I think the shows have met with different reactions, some overwhelmingly positive, with others more on the lukewarm side. But WandaVision, I think, kicked things off on the right foot with such an interesting story. And from a week-to-week perspective, I remember people trying to figure out what was happening. Now, in the end, this show is ultimately a story about grief, but also a key story in starting Wanda on the journey that would take her to a full-on villainous role in the multiverse of madness. So I think from a Disney Plus show perspective, one of my favorites of the ones released so far. So let's look at the Vision as we normally do and start with the overall package, and there are many accessories here. You have a flight stand on the standard hexagonal base, you get some alternate hands, and I think the most interesting accessories all have to do with the sculpt. You get a set of alternate eyes, an alternate stone for his forehead that's designed to connect to the energy beam piece, which is the last component of the set. So let's look a little bit more closely, and let's start by looking at the energy beam piece, which is I think what sets this Vision apart from the other releases. And it's a nice translucent blue plastic with the bulbous piece at the attachment point kind of showing the start of the energy pulse, as well as an energy effect around the beam. So definitely a well done piece, and I think these effects have gotten better over time for Hot Toys, so looking forward to seeing this piece on the figure. Next up, he has a few interchangeable hands, including a pair of fists and a pair of fully open hands that seem more relevant for like a flight pose. These all have really nice white paint-apps that almost seem metallic in nature, and they go well with the rest of the figure suit and face sculpt. And there's a lot of nice detailing here, showing good texture. Final accessories are interesting again because they focus specifically on the sculpt. And you are getting an alternate pair of eyes and an alternate piece for his forehead, as well as a tool to change both pieces. Now the eyes look really good, and they're meant to represent the shift that happens once the Vision regains his memories during the battle with the Vision that's been created from Wanda's powers. So pretty neat piece here, even though the differences in the eyes at this scale are really subtle. And that's it for the accessories. So now let's take a look at the sculpt, and I'll say it's a really solid effort here. But again, I don't think there were ever any complaints about the other Vision releases either. Here they recreated the resurrected Vision really nicely, with great detail work around the face and decent selection of alternate whites and silvers, creating that android feel. The paintwork around the face is also a great metallic white, but what really does stand out here to me is the detail work on the forehead that runs across the top of his head. And hopefully it's evident in the video, but you can actually see circuitry running along his skin. It's done in a really nice muted color where it blends in naturally with the sculpt, and again feels like it sets the figure apart. There is also a light up feature here, and the head literally slides over this black stub that houses the batteries and has this on and off switch, and it's a super bright LED. So once you turn it back on and slide the head on, the circuit on his forehead lights up, and because it's nice and bright, it really stands out even with the lights on. And when you turn off the lights, it's really blaring and really evident. So it's a nice feature, and while normally I'm not crazy about lights, just because they're a hassle to turn on, here it's relatively easy to do. Although I do wish these were USB powered or something similar, just to avoid the headache with button cells. Finally, the eyes. It's really difficult to see on the video, so hopefully it's coming across, but there are subtle variations in both sets of eyes. Again, showing that transition that we've been discussing. Now, the eyes themselves look great, and credit where credit is due, because for a piece that's so small, Hot Toys did a killer job. And even to think of providing both sets of eyes is a testament to their attention to detail. I guess choice on how to display really depends on personal preference. Again, I think it's a piece that only you yourself as the owner would realize is different, but it would suit whatever story you're trying to tell with your figures. As for the rest of the figure, the main body is a one-piece suit that has some nice textured elements to it, along with some lines of silver that run down the side. So there's a nice feeling that this isn't just a dull white. The shoulder chest element that holds his cape, the gauntlets, the boots, and his belt are a combination of silver and off-white pieces, giving the figure a nice sense of depth. It could have been easy for this just to look like a white blob, but it's an overall nice piece with a lot of detail work that helps it stand out. Cape is very similar to the original Vision release from Age of Ultron, with an interesting set of geometric patterns. Only difference here is it's a combination of whites and gray tones, but beyond that, very similar, and it's also a very thin material. Now, the cape is wired, but I just wish the wires along the edges could be a little stronger. They do work and let you get some poses, but nothing dynamic as, say, the cloak of levitation that you get with Doctor Strange. Still, it does drape nicely, and if you're patient, you can get some nice poses out of it. Now let's look at the head sculpt with the energy beam attached and all lit up. And man, does this make an impression. It really is a nice piece, and it does light up nicely with the LED. Definitely think this is going to be something I choose to keep on display with this figure, as I do think it sets it apart, and it's an accessory that by itself gives the figure some dynamic feel to it. So overall thoughts on this release are that I really like him. He's a simple release in terms of accessories and even poses, but he looks great regardless. And I think the figure captures the feeling from the show, particularly with the sculpt in the eyes. It's a coldness to this version of Vision, and his appearance on the show starts exactly as that. He's a mindless android completely under Sword's control. So I think looking at both versions that I have, you can definitely feel like this Vision is colder and more aggressive as opposed to the original portrayal of the character, where you can feel some emotions and some humanity. I think with all that said, it's obvious that the key with the figure is definitely the sculpt and the options you get with the head to display him in multiple forms. Articulation-wise, he's okay. The arms are fairly unrestricted, but the bodysuit does hinder articulation a little bit, so don't expect to get the most amazing dynamic poses here. Although with Vision, I do think the flight poses are the best, and minus his fight with Vision on the show, I don't think you've ever seen the character get into a full-on brawl requiring a full range of dynamic posability. He's so overpowered in the MCU that he usually just uses his energy beam or can be found in a flying pose, so I don't think emulating that feel of the character will be a problem here. I do also like the color scheme. With Marvel, you get a ton of figures in darker color schemes like the Black Widows, the Captain Americas, and the Iron Man figures, but a fully white-suited figure is more rare, and I think they definitely do tend to stand apart. I think this figure, along with the white-suited Black Widow, will really stand out, although fingers crossed we don't see any yellowing of the white suit over time, so we'll just have to wait and see. So next up from the series to be released is Wanda Maximoff in that final Scarlet Witch suit. So I'm really looking forward to getting that figure and having her stand next to the Vision. And beyond that, I am curious to see what's next for the character. We've already seen Wanda's story continue to unfold in the Doctor Strange sequel with more rumored appearances upcoming, but no one has really mentioned what's next for Vision. Last we see of him is him flying away from Westview with his memories returning, and I doubt that Kevin Feige and all the folks over at Marvel would end Vision's story this way. So as we wrap up, again, I really like this version of the character, and I was glad when Hot Toys announced him. And now that I have him in hand, he looks incredible. So that was it. This is a pretty quick review, to be honest. Let me know what you think of this figure and what you think of Wandavision as well. And as always, thank you for watching. And if you are enjoying these reviews and some of my breaking news, first thoughts videos, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll touch base on the next video.